I think I forwarded the invite to you, so Nick, or to him, so Mickey may be waiting, I don't know. She's
no.
usually ahead of me.
Not yet.
Okay,
We still got 3 minutes.
yeah, fair.
Oh, yeah?
We have until I see the.
How'd you like it?
Until we see.
That was
the,
impressive.
True, we
We
do.
didn't get it all.
That's the one thing I
It's
gave
a
it.
recommended time, right?
Yeah, I can start when I want to
It's-
start.
Yeah.
It is an awesome, awesome museum.
I mean, drones and spaceships and
Yep.
P1 and P2.
Whenever the judge walks in.
Did you go through the nuclear missile silo?
I'm sorry,
Yes.
I'm late. I said, I'm a judge by definition, you're on time.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it?
Well, we
If
can't
you're
apologize.
5 minutes before, you're 5 minutes after, it doesn't matter, you're on time. We have
There's
to work
Nikki.
around you.
Yeah, that's pretty
Are
cool.
you-
That's a bit true.
Are you eventually gonna have camera,
Oh, sorry.
lights, camera action?
Got,
Ta-da!
That's okay, we don't.
Look at that.
oh. That's fine, but we can't see, hey, we can't see you, Robert.
That's because I put the.
There you go.
There you go.
Over my camera.
Yeah, I thought you washed your hair today and everything.
Yeah, I literally just made myself presentable about 5 minutes ago.
You don't have to convince me of that, I firmly believe it.
I think it's 5:15 somewhere.
It's 5:15 on my iPad, which is the most important place.
Yeah.
And we'll go ahead and call the, are we on sound and everything?
Yep.
Okay. We'll go ahead and call the March meeting of the Board of Aviation Commissioners for the City of Warsaw to order. You should all have received through Board Pack your various documents. The first thing on the agenda would be the review and approval of the minutes from the February 14th meeting.
I make that motion.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the February 14 minutes. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. Motion carried. February claims, kind of a short list, one big one there, but other than that, a short list. What's going on?
The big one is our annual payment for the tractor. Thanks, Robert. And other than that, the only other big one would be Robinson Construction. That is for the annual maintenance agreement that we needed for the Zimmer door. Series Solutions for 280347 was fuel for our snow. I'm happy that number is low. We didn't have too much snow to plow this winter, so our fuel costs are down compared to where they normally are. But pretty quiet month.
Any questions?
Nope.
I move we accept the claims, especially the $27,411.97 for Accent Aviation and the $300 for Morrison Aviation Services.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed say nay.
Abstain.
Abstention by Mr. Robinson. Motion carried.
And just to follow up on the Morrison Aviation Services, so he is the new mechanic on the field and will be offering some services through the airport where we will contract him to do cargo unloading, de-icing, lavatory services, things like that, just stuff we've not offered in the past, but we're gonna fold it in underneath the City Aviation Services so that our customers are just receiving one invoice instead of two. And it'll clean it up, so we are working on finalizing those numbers and hope to have a presentation to you guys next month sometime.
Not a big deal probably for us, but is he operating as a corporation as well?
He is, yeah.
Okay, so we'll have that as Morrison Aviation Services, Inc. next time we see it, right?
I don't know if it's an Inc. or LLC or how that
Okay,
is.
well, that's what I'm gonna ask. If it's corporation, it's gonna have to have Inc. or corporation in it. If it's not, it could be an LLC, but you also still wanna mark it LLC. So find out from him, just so we're making sure to do that right.
I can do that.
Okay. Okay, next on the agenda, recognition of visitors. Hi, visitors. How you doing? Section 3, reports, written and oral communications, and number 1 is engineers report. Robert?
Oh, thank you, Jay. This one will be relatively quick, but I'm gonna assume that we're gonna have questions. No invoices today, so no board motions. The 2-7 obstruction mitigation project, the power line project. So we do have a finalized, agreed, notarized construction agreement, so that is completed. That is great news. However, our airport consultant monthly meeting with AEP on Tuesday, March 7th was a contentious one, and it led to a leadership discussion with AEP on Friday, March 10th. Jay was in attendance to that meeting. The derivative behind the impetus for the leadership discussion was general unhappiness with the rate at which things were getting completed on the AEP side. And what I mean by that in context is it took a little over 7 months to get a construction agreement agreed upon, completed, and signed. And during the monthly meeting on Tuesday, essentially what was told to us was that nobody wanted to sign it. Nobody wanted to take ownership for it. And so that led to more discussion with a request for the leadership discussion to happen on March 10th. That happened. The result of that, I thought the March 10th meeting went relatively well. We finally were able to have a discussion with folks that have decision-making authority, in my opinion, which we did not otherwise have access to mostly up to this point. And the ball is rolling now. I think they understand the delay up to this point is on AEP solely, and they're working to mitigate some of that delay. But the delay in question is, as with most construction projects, there's a longer lead time on materials, and the material procurement was not able to happen until the construction agreement was in place. And so this week, speaking with new leadership on the project on the AEP side, they are working through getting those procurement bids placed, most importantly with the pole vendor. The lead time on the poles right now sits at, from first order, about 30 weeks. The good news is that the pole vendor is well aware that this pole order is coming in, and they already have shop space lined up for the pole order. So the goal, hope, prayer is that the lead time of 30 weeks is significantly reduced with some of the lead time that AEP has put in with the pole vendor, with the understanding that this project is upcoming. So that means that the schedule has changed. Up to date, we have been working towards a goal of November 2023 as power lines in place. If said order of poles is on 30-week timeline from this week, that puts us just over November to get materials. And so construction could start late fall, but the poles won't be up until spring 2024. So that is all hearsay, conjecture, projection, potential at this point. We're anticipating an updated schedule from AEP now that the construction agreement is in place. Once they go through all of the material procurement, they will be able to put down a concrete schedule for line closures, blackout, construction, that entire timeline. So hopefully we have that for you by next board meeting. But right now that's a little bit up in the air. I will say that AEP is aware of the frustration. That was well iterated in both meetings. And they understand that this project, is, beholden to FAA requirements of grant, restrictions and regulations. So we're on a time frame here that AEP has to meet, and leadership during the discussion on March 10th, reiterated that, the power line completion will be well within that grant timeline.
Okay, so Robert, there are things that they can do, project, activities as part of the project can start before the poles get there. Am I hearing you correct?
Yeah, 100%. The design is not changed. So the design will be completed, at this point, much prior to construction start. The original intent was to have design roll directly into construction, which is 2023, the November 2023 timeline. So the design is still on track. That's unaffected by the construction agreement because the design is under the pre-construction agreement that we have already agreed upon back in August.
Yeah. So I kind of had in my head, I didn't have in my head that we were going to be completed by November of 2023. But if somebody drives out in November of 2023, they should see something going on. It's still,
Something
as
should be
far as
happening.
we know.
Right away work, clearing, I'm hoping, I don't know this is just pure conjecture, but I mean, there's foundation work for those poles. There's a lot of enabling projects that could happen prior to the poles coming on board. So I'm hoping that there's some work start prior to the pole.
Well, I think we do too. We don't want to wait, we understand that obviously you got to have the poles before you complete it, but we don't want everybody else sitting around waiting, well, okay, we're going to wait for the poles now before we can pay attention to it, so.
That's correct. I think one of the questions that we need to have answered that is typical with most construction projects is what is the OD mode cost associated with that? Are there different vendors? A different contractor that's going to do the poles and does the construction. So there's still questions to answer. Hopefully those get answered with the schedule update from AEP. I'm not going to promise that we'll have that by next board meeting, but we're certainly pushing for it.
Okay. Anybody else have any comments or questions?
Well, I guess I do. I don't know whether I should say it or not.
Comments you wish to share,
I'm
okay.
gonna do it after you,
Yeah.
so go ahead.
AEP made this agreement quite some time ago. Why wasn't anybody willing to sign it? I mean,
Great question.
Yeah. Do the words bureaucratic cowardice, would they apply to the situation?
I think not for lack of, I guess, Nick, aggression would be the right word, on our part during the monthly meetings. I couldn't tell you if it was bureaucratic, if it was complacency, if it was any of those things at this point. I just know that document was having real difficulty getting signed and notarized, and it is now in place.
so they did sign it?
Yeah.
It's signed now.
They did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So it is in place. They're working toward material procurement this week.
Yeah, we had that meeting at 9 o'clock, and I had a copy in my email signed by them, and everybody else needed to be signed by 11:20.
Well, good.
So it finally happened.
The
Yeah.
second question is, you kind of alluded to it, they have not told you when they're going to start foundations?
They are
They have not.
they are working on an updated schedule if memory serves, right, Rob?
That is correct. So once they, well, obviously it's more a pole from a material perspective, but I think the poles are the longest lead time,
Yeah?
Yeah.
so that dictates the final schedule for final completion date and the, transfer the power line and backup dates and things like that. But there, like I said, there's a lot of enabling projects that I think could be started to expedite some of that
These
construction time.
These poles, they're bolt on to the foundation, they're not cast in the foundation, are they?
Another great question. I don't know that either. This is the new T line. This is not the old structure. This is the new structure, so I couldn't answer that with any degree of confidence. But I'll get that answer for you.
Okay,
Next board meeting, I'll make a note to make sure that we've got a little bit more understanding of how the construction is going to happen, and I can report back.
thank you.
Rob, Gene Zale here. We're taking down 6 towers, correct?
Yes.
And how many,
Yeah.
how many are we gonna replace that with? Is it
Put me on the spot.
8 or 10?
I thought-
think it's 7. I think it's 7 or 8.
I was thinking of 7.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not 1 for 1. I think there's 1 or 2 extra on the lower inside
Okay,
to get it down to the correct elevation before they go back up.
okay.
So, if any, I feel more comfortable saying 8, but 7 sounds very good. But before the end of this meeting, Gene, I'll look that up and make sure that you get the
Okay.
right answer.
Okay, what else you got to talk about with us, Robert?
All right, the runway safety area project, RSAP, we're about 40% complete. That project's ongoing. We're scheduled for a completed study targeting August, pending FAA review and approval. The bulk of the runway safety area inventory and determination are complete. The alternatives are complete. What we're working on now are the cost estimates, and the financial feasibility is upcoming. And then we will have a larger group discussion about which alternative we should be targeting based on some of the feasibility that comes out of the cost estimation. Typically during alternative reviews, Dan will appreciate this, there's always a question of how much it's gonna cost. And so we need to be able to answer that question before we can start making some final decisions on which direction we want to go with the determination, because ultimately that'll set up the foundation of the runway programming effort, which is the second part of the task. So those 2 things are upcoming. The traffic study is concluded, the results are being documented, so we'll have something to report back to the board next meeting. Not directly associated with the project, but more a general discussion about the overall. We do have an in-person meeting with the FAA next Wednesday, March 22nd. That'll be attended by Nathan and Nick. I will try to call that virtually. Unfortunately, I have a conflict on that date, so I couldn't be in person. But most of the discussion will be surrounded, obviously, the airport, but forecast that we discussed during the last board meeting that has the potential to impact the 927 Phase 2 environmental assessment. So there's quite a bit of coordination and conversation on what's the next steps subsequent to the runway safety area determination and runway programming efforts. That some of that will be hashed out, discussed, not necessarily finalized next week. And that's all I got for you, John.
Okay. Any other questions,
questions?
comments, concerns, anything? Nick?
Nope.
Okay. Thank you, Robert.
Yeah. No problem, thank you.
Okay, next, manager's report. Nick, what do you have for us?
Well, as you guys can see, fuel sales are a little bit slower to start this year. I think that's just partially because of the economy is slowing down. We're seeing a little bit fewer transient aircraft. Jet fuel is down about 7,000 gallons year to date so far, so I'm not super concerned quite yet. On the plus side, avgas is up. We're up over 1,000 gallons from where we were at this time last year. So hopefully that trend continues. As you look at the financial report, you'll see we did take a load of fuel and the price of avgas came down. So we are seeing quite a few people flying in, taking advantage of that little bit cheaper fuel. But other than that, I don't have too much to report. It's still pretty early in the year. And we have a lot of hangars to get through, unless you have any specific questions.
Just a question about the volatility of gas prices, because everybody's been dealing with that. Have you been able to keep track of that in terms of comparing with other airports and making sure that we're still in good shape?
Yep, I've been watching, and we are right in line with our competitors all
Okay.
the time. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I know it's a hard thing to do, particularly when you got a lot of ups and downs like we've had over the last 6 months, but.
Jet fuel has been surprisingly stable since Christmas. We had a couple big drops, like 60 cents in 1 week drops for a couple different times, but outside of that, 5 or 6 cent fluctuations, and then, is it January that avgas dropped? Yeah, in January avgas dropped, and it's been pretty much flat since then, so it's been nice for us. We haven't seen the huge fluctuations like auto gas has, but I don't know a reason for that. So our fuel provider has been sending out fairly regular forecasts of what they are seeing coming down the pipeline as far as pricing, and outside of those couple that I told you about, it's anywhere from 4 to 10 cents at most fluctuation in a week, which in jet fuel is pretty rare. I mean, normally there's a lot more swings in the market than we're seeing right now. So.
Okay. Okay, any other questions for Nick on his report?
Nope.
Okay, what else you got for us then, under either unfinished or new business?
New business. We've got a lot of hangar. Linda and I did our annual audit on figuring out who needed what. I'm going to start off with sale of hangar 6G, 6 Golf. Charles Cole approached me and is wanting to sell his hangar to Jack Collins. He is selling it for $9,000, and I've spoken with Jack. Jack is actually in the middle of building an airplane right now, and will need a place to store his aircraft once it is built. And seems like a very nice young man, and I think he'd be a pretty good fit on our airfield. So I would support this sale of hangar 6 Golf from Charles Cole to Jack Collins.
How old is this guy? Nick is describing him as a young man. Very nice. But
Well,
He's
is
graduating
anybody
high school or
under
he's graduating college this
75
year.
that'd
Oh,
be
okay.
young.
I'm still young.
Okay,
Yeah, there you are.
I'll make the
Stay on
motion,
this board.
I'll make the motion, we approve that sale, 6G.
very good.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carried.
All right, and
So,
I will pass the land lease down to you. So you guys
Okay.
can sign that.
Mandy, did you get my eye? I was kind of slow.
And then we just have several options to Okay, we're just gonna do, so. I had a brain fart, excuse me. Explorer Van, their land lease ran out, and so I spoke with them, and they would like to sign a new lease. They are one of our bigger corporate tenants, so obviously I support this 100%. And I just went ahead and put them, they signed underneath our new land lease that we went through here a couple years ago. So I would very strongly recommend that the board approve their new lease so that they can continue operating out of Warsaw Airport.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the land lease with Explorer Van. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carried.
Next one is just an option to extend. It is hangars 5A and 5B, both owned by Tim Grissom. Tim is one of our more active general aviation pilots, and so I would also strongly recommend that we approve that
So-
option to extend.
A motion to extend the Grissom hangars would allow us to sign both of these at the same time, correct?
Correct.
So moved.
Second?
Been moved and seconded to approve extension of the Grissom hangars. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. Motion carried.
And the last one is hangar, I have the wrong hangar number, but I'll get the right one down. It's hangar 21, I think Delta, but it's Polk Equipment Group, and they just need an option to extend their land lease as well. 21C, excuse me, I was off by a letter, so. I'll just need to scratch out the 5B and put 21C in there.
I'm competent to do that.
Thank you, Jay. And again, very good customer and would recommend that we approve their option to extend.
Oh, yeah, Polk's been very supportive, so.
So moved on that one too.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve extension of the Polk equipment lease. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed say nay. Motion carried.
And this one doesn't need a motion, but this was approved at last month's meeting and I couldn't get all the different signatures on it, so. And that's all I have.
And this is the pre-existing business, which I'll pass down. Any further business from the board? Anything from our distinguished visitors? Okay. Very good. Hearing nothing, we will adjourn this meeting to return for our next meeting, which is April 11th, 2023. Thank you much.
Thank you, folks.
Thanks, CHA.
Thanks.
See ya.
Okay.